Hi, this is Optimus Primal, and this is Silverbolt's Transformer Review.
Morning, everybody. Silverbolt here, back with a Transformers review. Going to be reviewing, as per the title page, assuming I can remember how to do it, Masterpiece Sideswipe. This video is going up a little later than planned. Initially, it actually took a lot longer to arrive than it should have. It was out nearly a month before I got it. So it's gone up later than I intended. I think I intended it to go up about 2 weeks ago. But there we go. I'm here! Yes! Masterpiece Sideswipe. Now, Sideswiping is Generation 1 cartoon bio and cartoon appearances I'm not going to go into, mainly because I've already done a Sideswipe review. And this is just a fancy version of that toy. So I'm going to be sticking with his IDW Continuity series. Now, Sideswipe's Generation 1 cartoon bio depicts him as reckless, foolhardy, very, very violent, and very headstrong. And this recklessness can get him into a lot of trouble, and it's not always a good thing. He can often get himself into scrapes that require others to get him out of. And Sideswipe is kind of a bit of, in some regards, self-serving. His attitudes for joining the Autobots are basically so he's got a chance to fight someone. However, over time, that does actually evolve itself into a reason that he wants to defend the freedom of others. Sideswipe is, of course, the youngest brother of Sunstreaker. But he does not have Sunstreaker's egomania, though he does share similarities in that, like Sideswipe, Sunstreaker is very, very eager to fight. Now, of course, the Generation 1 cartoon never really reflects this. The 80s cartoon pretty much didn't really do an awful lot by way of character development, aside from maybe the Dinobots, at least in seasons 1 and 2. And so what actually happens is Sideswipe's character bio gets completely left at the wayside, and he just ends up being another generic soldier. Like most of the Autobots, they were all given this wistful, good guy, forced to fight but don't really want to attitude. And that was very much respected amongst all of them, despite the fact that many of them, their character bios varied severely, significantly from their original source material. With the IDW, and IDW, to some extent Dreamwave did it, but IDW have really gone to town on it. They've developed the Transformers characters an awful lot more. They've fleshed them out. In some regards, they've made them a lot more human, in that just because they're necessarily a good guy doesn't mean they're a nice guy, i.e. Prowl and RC. And that the bad guys aren't necessarily the bad guys, they might just be caught up on the wrong side, i.e. Drift and, in later series, Thundercracker. Now that Thundercracker is fighting for the Autobots. Mainly that's due because he disrupted Megatron's plans and didn't really like that very much. So there we go. So, with IDW's fleshing out of the characters, we see a lot more in regards to plot points, and that's an interesting point to specifically bring up about Sideswipe. Sideswipe has always been a popular character, but he's not really done an awful lot. He's one of those characters that keeps popping up, and you always know that he's around because you see him on screen, but he doesn't really do that much. He's always been, just another man in the squad. You know, if the Autobots wore uniforms, you probably wouldn't be able to name him outside of the random grunt in Starship Troopers that gets killed. But he remains a firm favourite, and as such, he's constantly coming into the stories. Now, in IDW, because they focused an awful lot more on individual Transformers rather than just the ever-glorious Optimus Prime, all hail! Yeah. So we get to see an awful lot more. Now, Sunstreaker was originally Sideswipe's trainer and a strike partner. And Sideswipe really looks up to him, and he's constantly trying to prove himself and he's presented as being very young and very exuberant, but very, very quickly he becomes very, very cynical. And he just basically wants to fight and kick Decepticon butt, or just kick anyone's butt, really. Now, Sunstreaker and Sideswipe, before the war actually starts, attended the illegal underground matches and were present at Megatron's 54th victory, which is when the fights get broken up by the Autobot High Council. Now, it's never made really clear whether they were actually caught up in the security raid, but they did watch Megatron's fights. and that led them through various methods to joining the Autobots. Now, they were separated, of course, during the events of Infiltration, Escalation of Devastation, when Sunstreaker was on Earth and Sideswipe wasn't. Sunstreaker has to be touched on slightly here. Sunstreaker, of course, becomes part of the Headmaster program with a human called Hunter. Without going into the details, because then it just becomes a Sunstreaker story, it doesn't end well for poor old Streaker. And if I ever get round to getting a Sunstreaker toy that I can review, I can go into it a bit more. Now then, Sideswipe really comes back into force during when he's under control with Hound, when he's part of a squad that's led by Hound. And they run into Cyclonus. Sideswipe was originally supposed to be guarding Thunderhead Pass, as in guarding of Thunderwing's remains. He didn't like that, so when he got to become part of Hound's squad, he went up against Cyclonus, and he, is like, yes, I want to fight! Let's do it! Fantastic! After meeting up with Cyclonus and joining up with Ultra Magnus, they intend to be heading towards Earth, where pretty much the battles are going on. However, they're diverted to the insurrection that's harrying on the Garum 9 prison station, which is, of course, is the story that's told primarily from Springer and Verity's point of view in Last Stand of the Wreckers. Excuse me. Sideswipe eventually does come to Earth, and he does pretty much about the only thing that he is majorly there for. He actually finds the installation where Sunstreaker and Hunter were turned into headmasters, and he actually finds Hunter still alive. We're led to believe that Hunter is dead, or we always thought that Hunter was dead, even though it was never specifically said. And Sideswipe, in an act of mercy, and in quite a dark tone, even though it is technically an act of mercy, well, I suppose it depends on your standpoint of euthanasia, in quite a dark tone, shuts off Hunter's life support systems, well, the systems that are keeping Hunter alive, and lets him die. That's very dark for a comic. Okay, granted, it's not that dark in some of the storylines that, say, DC have had, but it's quite dark for a Transformers comic. And it really does show the more adult theme tune that IDW have taken. Last Stand of the Wreckers, with its body parts and heads exploding and purple blood, really brought that one out. Okay. Sideswipe eventually goes back to Cybertron, and during the fighting there, he's very, very badly traumatized by Sunstreaker's act of finding out that Sunstreaker was the one who betrayed the Autobots, and his subsequent self-sacrifice to allow the others to get away. He's actually quite damaged by that. He becomes even more eager to prove himself. He becomes even more eager to live up to Sunstreaker's memory. And that youthful exuberance that had been portrayed by Sideswipe becomes a very bitter nose thing. And that's pretty much it for Sideswipe's character. As I said earlier, Sideswipe is one of those characters that seems to come and go in the background and in the foreground, but never really does an awful lot. Sideswipe eventually comes back to Earth, he gets into a fight with Skywarp, gets his arm ripped off, and then once the war is over, Sideswipe is part of the security details when other things start showing up on Cybertron, like the unaffiliated Transformers. And then Skybite comes in, and D-Void comes into it. And I will admit, I can't go into too much information about that because I haven't personally read it. This is the West of Ireland we're currently in, and I never was much one for buying comics on a weekly basis. So on to the toy. Now, being a masterpiece, it is representative of the Generation 1 toy scheme. Masterpiece Megatron notwithstanding. And as such, this guy is a Lamborghini Countach, as he was in the 80s cartoons, with a robot mode to match his cartoon showings? I don't know. Maybe, yes. I'm saying an awful lot into this one. You could turn it into a drinking game. Challenge accepted! Anyway, yes, sorry about that. So he's a Lamborghini Countach in, obviously, the Generation 1 colours and stylings of the cartoon. In a detour from the Masterpiece toy range, the tyres aren't rubber. They're hard plastic, unusual. And as you can tell, he's a great deal smaller. And that is something I'm going to get to about the toy when I put it into its lovely, lovely robot mode. Masterpiece Sideswipe was announced quite a while back and was following on when the Masterpiece line is kind of getting redone. And when I say redone, I mean just made a little bit smaller. And we obviously are expecting it to get repainted into at least red alert. So there we go. And it's a deviation from the Transformers, the Masterpiece range, in which really the new molds have only ever been the leaders, which is why we've had Prime, Megatron, Grimlock, Sleeping Prime, Nemesis Prime, blah, 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 and Rodimus. Hot Rod, okay. Where they've tried to make them into their Generation 1 cartoon counterparts, as most people are aware from the Takara Masterpiece lines. Sideswipe is no exception for this, apart from being a considerably smaller toy. And he does feel more like a toy. However, he's a lovely toy. He's a very, very nice toy. And with the Masterpiece range getting more and more into the foot soldier side of it, because of course we have Soundwave coming out with some of these cassettes, which I will be getting. You know, we're looking to see more in the range of different Transformers rather than just endless repaints of Prime and the sweeps. Because of course Starscream was a Decepticon leader, and then he just got repainted for, well, he was green Starscream, then he got repainted into Skywarp and Thundercracker and Sunstorm, and then one of the other third-party companies did the nose cones, did the cone heads based off them and things like that. So Sideswipe represents a bit more of a breakaway from the classic leaders style. Obviously, I have all the other Masterpieces, except for Masterpiece Megatron, because I didn't bring that with me, because that was just a fail on every part, and is the one Transformer that I truly loathe and despise above all others. And I never bought Rodimus. The reason for that was I originally wanted to wait for the Target Master Companion, because it's me and Target Masters and Headmasters and things like that. However, I never got, when I was actually I actually had a friend, Razatron, stopping with us after one of the conventions. And we went to Toys R Us and we actually found Masterpiece Rodimus, and Razatron bought it, and it was just horrible. So I didn't bother with Masterpiece Rodimus either. And they're the only two that I don't have, apart from the endless repaints of Prime. Though I do want Nemesis Prime at some point. There's just something about him being black with red eyes. It's just really, really nice. Okay, but carrying on with the Sun Sideswipe review, and not off on one of my famous, again, tangents, we do see that, as a Lamborghini Countach, he is quite a sleek, sexy, with turbo handling. Not an awful lot I can say about it. It's a car. It's got lines. It's got wheels. It's got a spoiler. It's not up there with Hot Rod spoiler. However, so we'll put it into robot mode, and I will do this off camera, because even though I will get to the simplicity of the transformation in the robot mode review, it's still going to take me a couple of minutes of me sat there fiddling and flapping around, and everybody knows that I can never do this on camera anyway. So, without further ado, I shall return. And here we are with robot mode Sideswipe. As you can tell, he is very resplendent of his Generation 1 cartoon counterpart. Ooh, get that little bit in there. And he is lovely as an actual toy. He does come complete with his rifle and his rocket launcher, which is non-firing. Not that that's actually a bad thing in my mind. Not everything has to have a spring-loaded missile in it, Hasbro. And then, of course, and it has a swivel joint so that it can focus up and down. He comes with two other additions. Now, in my version, he comes with two rather bland black plastic pile drivers that clip onto the end of his hands. However, there's a second version that comes with it, which actually has the silver shovel pointy ones. However, I haven't got those out at the moment because I don't actually think I've taken them out of the box because they don't actually look that good, to my opinion. Now, one of the biggest failings I had with Rodimus was a massive, wide-open chest cavity, where you had the front of the torso, you had the back of the torso, then you had a big hole in between that you could see right through, and I really didn't like that about the Rodimus Prime toy, and it's what pretty much put me off it. With Sideswipe, you don't have that. There is a little bit of a gap that you can see right through there, but it's not really much that you need to worry about. There's nice little folding tabs on the legs to allow so that they become more solid and less, very obviously just two-sided bits, four-sided bits. Sorry. Articulation is very, very good with hip joints, knee joints, some movement in the ankle, and then it moves at the waist, it moves at the head moves up, moves at the head has some upward movements, but not a great deal, shoulders, elbows, and of course wrists. Now then, it is overall a very, very nice toy. Now, but to my mind, it has two major flaws. Three actually, sorry. But they're not so much flaws with the toy itself. They're more situational problems to my mind. Now, first things first, I'll just take his gun out because we need it at the moment, is the size. Comparing him to Grimlock, you can see there is quite a large size differential between the two. Not so much a problem with Grimlock, and it's not so much a problem with the size of the toy itself, it's the fact that he is, he's a bit bigger than a Voyager class toy. Some Voyagers might be bigger, or he's a bit taller than a Deluxe, but he's a masterpiece. And that brings me on to my second flaw, is his price. He is very expensive. He's very much a case of you're paying for the name. I picked him up for €90. No, I paid about 90 quid in total, including postage and packaging, off a seller on eBay, who took an absolute age for it to get here, but there we go. But I have seen him go for the standard masterpiece price range of 150 quid. And 150 quid for a slightly oversized Deluxe toy is, in my mind, way too expensive. Way too expensive. The third issue I have with the toy is the lack of die-cast metal. Now, the masterpieces are Optimus Prime is a paperweight in many regards. So the lack of die-cast metal on this toy really lets it down. Okay, our masterpiece Megatron, the die-cast led to rust, but there we go. It really does let it down in some regards. They could have gone the alternator scale. This toy would not look bad out of place because he's about the same size. The Binaltechs had a lot of metal attached to them. I remember Binaltech Ravage was so heavy. So his size lets him down. But that being said, as taking him just as a toy, he's absolutely lovely. Great playability, great posability, quite a seamless, smooth transformation as well. I can actually do this guy without the instruction booklet. So if Propellant Found Dead's watching this, he's going, what? But there we go. So I can actually transform this guy without the instruction manuals. Because it's got quite a seamless, easy transformation. Now, naturally being sideswipe, as I said earlier, we can expect to get repaints of this toy. So probably unlikely that I might get him, depending if I've got the spare currency, which is unlikely at this moment in time. But he is a very, very nice toy. But because he's a masterpiece, he is classically a collector's. But arguably, I'd argue, you could give this to a child, albeit if you're very, very rich, because I certainly wouldn't be giving it to my nephew. You could give it to a child to play with, and he probably wouldn't do any damage to it. And you wouldn't feel that too risque, stupid to actually let a child play with it. But of course, with it being a masterpiece, it's not technically a play piece. But though, wait a minute, lads, we all do it a little bit. We all play with them sometimes. So you could do, form-wise, he looks so much like his Transformers Generation 1 counterpart. He really is the spitting image of the G1 toy. The G1 cartoon. And he is a lovely, lovely toy. He fits together well. He's moulded well. He stands out nicely, apart from his size, which I think is a real letdown. Not so much in the form of Grimlock, who, of course, is supposed to be that much bigger than him anyway. And I thought one of the biggest flaws with Masterpiece Grimlock was the fact that he was smaller than Masterpiece Prime, which was completely incorrect for the toy range itself. But up against the Seekers, he's tiddly. He's tiddly. And I think that lets it down. I think overall it's an overpriced toy. It's too small and it's too overpriced. It's too expensive for what it is, especially considering the lack of die-cast that's attached to it. So you are very much paying for the fact that it's a Takara masterpiece. Is that enough reason to get it in my mind? Well, seeing as I'm currently collecting the masterpieces, then yes. But then I wouldn't, if I was walking into a shop and I saw him on the shelves, but I also saw other things that I could get, I'd probably leave him in favour of the cheaper items, purely because he's just so expensive. Do I recommend getting him for a collector? Yes, most certainly get him. He's a lovely, lovely addition to the range. He's very, very nice as an actual toy, but I do think the price and the lack of die-cast and his overall size genuinely let him down. Okay, that's it for this review. I can't really think of anything else to say. I can really tell that I've been a bit out of practice in regards to these reviews. I am feeling rather... can't wait. So I'm feeling really much out of place with them, and you can really tell I haven't done one in about a year. But hopefully we shall have more to come. Obviously we are going to be seeing when the TFC aerial box come out. That'll be another reviews that are coming up. And since I'm doing Masterpiece Soundwave, I might do a review of Masterpiece Soundwave as well. But for now, this is still the Vault with Masterpiece Sideswipe. Masterpiece Sideswipe signing off, saying au revoir, adios, I'll be soon.